I was struggling initially kind of at the surface, just, with anxiety and overeating and depression and just kind of not being able to make good decisions for myself and frustration with that and thinking like, okay, I need to start eating better. I need to start working out. I want to lose weight. And, after we kind of talked, sort of delving more into like, okay, well, it's not, that's a symptom versus what actually was causing it. So kind of then delving into some old traumas and mindsets that were keeping me from doing what I needed to do or wanted to do.
And how long were you suffering from this?
I mean, these have been issues I've had my entire life.
And if you had to put a number, like how many years, would say 20, 30 years, 15 years?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be 38 this week. So, at the very least, since probably over 30 years.
And I want to go down a couple of the symptoms that you were initially struggling with. And tell me if you still experience them, all right? Heart racing.
No.
Trouble breathing.
No.
Feeling dizzy or jumpy on edge.
No.
Yeah. Easily set off to get angry or break into tears.
No.
Tunnel vision.
Nope.
Being nauseous and wanting to throw up.
No.
Easily wanting to cry.
No.
Frequently waking up at night.
No.
Yeah. What other changes have you noticed since you and I worked together?
I've definitely noticed that I am reacting much less strongly, like emotionally, to things that, I don't kind of fly off the handle in any direction. I can kind of have something happen or have a conversation and kind of remain in control of my emotions, even if it's upsetting or even if, I get angry. I don't feel like I'm out of control. I don't feel like, I can't pull back or think clearly, and that it just basically takes me over until it burns itself out. Like now I can kind of feel it and sit with it and, be able to then decide what I want to do with it. And like, am I feeling this still? Do I have a conversation? But it's not just me flying off the handle and crying or screaming or being frustrated and then being exhausted, and that's when it ends.
Yeah. And right now, it's remarkable. My awesome client here of mine, she's going through a career change right now. She's in transition. She's in between jobs. Normally, how would you have reacted to this?
There would have been pretty much just massive anxiety and kind of immediate, knee-jerk reaction, which I kind of started to do, which was to try and find another job that was, more stressful and more high-powered and, just do that because that's what's expected of me and that's what I'm supposed to do. And, after doing that for a bit and feeling myself start to get anxious again, I was able to just stop and breathe and think and go, let me think about what I want to do rather than just trying to force myself into something that is going to make me miserable potentially because I know I don't want it.
Yeah. It's remarkable. She threw herself at this whole thing. So let me, you suffered, you were on the victim end of receiving some unfortunate trauma and abuse from people. And just as comfortably as you can, how was that impacting your life before working with me?
There were times where things would just, even though I kind of was like, hey, this was a long time ago, I'm mostly over it, I've processed it, it still felt like it would pop up here and there, just in my thoughts, which, I guess happens, but my emotional response would still be there. I would still get angry, which was kind of where I was at that point, where I'd still have some anger towards this or, negative feelings, or a lot of it too is just this kind of why me sort of why did I have to deal with this? Why was this thrown at me? It's not fair. And kind of that repeated, it's not fair. I hate that this happened. So even if it was a really brief moment where it was in my head, those thoughts would still pop up of not fair, I hate it. And then it would just kind of move on. And there was, more emotion tied to it than I think I even realized.
Yeah. And I remember how you were telling me how you used to be more confident and how this entire horrific experience during the trauma had changed you, make you doubt yourself.
Yeah, I was, kind of able to look at that and in these sessions make this connection that I hadn't made before, or basically saw this series of events that kind of fed from that first, like, or there's the trauma of, just the childhood stuff, but then like how that led to this really big one, and how things came from that I was like, okay, this is where I need to be, or where I belong, or what I deserve. And how that kept just chipping away until I hit this point where I'm like, I don't recognize who I am. And, this like lack of confidence in these areas that I've never suffered from before. And then when I kind of look back, I could go like, okay, it wasn't this bad until this, but it actually started way back here. And like seeing that just continuing bloom of that.
Yeah. And now when you think about the person and the events, the horrific events, does it faze you?
There's really nothing there at this point.
It's remarkable. Number one, yes, I am using incredibly advanced protocols of hypnosis and other healing modalities, but it's all her. She threw herself at this. And by the way, did I ever guarantee you any results before working with me?
No.
And so why did you say yes?
I just knew that I could not continue with where I was, and I was willing to try anything. And I know when we we actually talked twice before. It was, I think once was a year before. And it's like on that call, like I felt like I kind of made more progress in understanding myself than I had in a long time on my own. And then kind of just life happened and things got insane again. And I finally was like, okay, like it needs to happen. It's now or never. And I reached out, and it always just felt like, yeah, there's no guarantee of fixing anything, but also like this wasn't like a completely brand new thing that you've never encountered before. Like this was, normal. This was like a thing that people experience. So like, even though I felt like an alien and like this was like, what's wrong with me? I don't understand it. Like you did. And you're like, yeah, that totally makes sense. Like, let's go and work with that.
Yeah. And the what is your therapist saying about you? What difference has she noticed in you?
She has definitely noted more of kind of a positive way of thinking about myself, and like willingness to like, even if I start kind of going down this path of like, like negative self-talk or anxiety or insecurity, that I'm able to, even if I can't perfectly pull it back, like recognize that it's wrong, that that's not true, and that I can actually be patient with myself and be understanding and compassionate, and know that like this is not where I want to be, but I'm also not beating myself up as much for being that way.
Yeah.
Or I'll have these thoughts, I don't like having them, but I'm not sitting here going like, oh, you're garbage because you're having these thoughts and feelings, like you're a bad person. Like,
and all that self-deprecating thoughts, and you no longer have that, do you?
No, like like it's every once in a while that little knee jerk and that ability to immediately go like, but that's not true.
Yeah. It's the changes, but she stepped into it because she was done being the victim, done living her life small because of the evilness, I can't even find the right words for it, of other people, negligence of other people, right? And you should see her how she is now. Visibly, you're more radiant, right? There's a certain energy in her that you will absolutely love. Just one more other question. Was this anything like stage hypnosis, or what you thought hypnosis was going to be?
No, if anything, it kind of reminded me more of meditation, which I've always kind of struggled to meditate because my mind tends to race and do all kinds of weird things. And it reminded me more of a little bit of that. And I know like I was even nervous with that because I've always been like, oh, I'm bad at meditation. And, right off the bat, you're explaining, like, look, you might move or your mind might start wandering or things happen, and that's totally normal. And, like, that kind of put me at ease because my first thought was, I'm going to do it wrong. Like, I'm going to do hypnosis wrong. But no, it was, like I said, it just reminded me more of almost like a guided meditation.
Yeah. And there's no wrong way. There's no right way. It's just your way. And I can work with it. I absolutely can work with it. And would you recommend someone struggling with anxiety or depression, even though I want them to see a therapist first, right? Be on meds and see therapists first, then see me. But would you recommend?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, the fact that I was able to come at this from different angles, and kind of hit it at the same time, like therapy and medication and coming to you and, trying to do more to take care of myself and just like general self-care. Granted, I was in a really severely bad place, but I can't see that it would not be a good thing for someone to have like multiple facets of taking care of themselves and of finding that path, especially because working with you and having found a good therapist, that like so much of what each of you has said and done has kind of like linked in to each other and sort of like built up with everything. So it's like, oh, well, that makes more sense now.
Thank you so much for having this interview here. And because I promise you, you will be saving somebody's life.